It's been a long time since I did one of these, but it's good to be back. And in today's video, we're going to talk about portrait photography. Let's dig in. Portrait photography as a genre aims to capture the likeness and the personality of a person or multiple people by using effective lighting, backdrops, and poses. It can be done indoors, like in a room, or if you own or have access to a studio, and can also be done outside. When it comes to styles of portrait photography, we have two traditional styles. The headshot that we all know, where only our head, neck, and maybe a bit of our shoulders appear in the photo. And the second one is the senior type portrait that you took for the school yearbook. Then, evolving from these two styles, we got the auto portrait or selfie, where the difference between them is that the selfie has its specific instant candid style, even if you take selfies with more people, whereas the auto portrait can borrow elements from all other genres of photography. And the lighting and composition are the two most important factors you need to keep in mind when you're taking your portraits or portraits of other people. And the last style on the list is the candid portrait, where only the face matters. Doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing, just snap a photo. Doesn't matter if it's the phone or a professional camera. Make sure the face is in focus and you're done. Nowadays, you can use any type of piece of clothing and pose, especially if you're doing a full body portrait, as long as you keep a limit of decency, obviously. And besides that, it is important to use everything you have in your environment to redirect the eyes of the viewer towards the person's face, simply because the human brain, it's wired in such a way that when it detects a human being or an animal in a photo, it automatically redirects the eye to look at the head and the face. Knowing this, use everything you have at your disposal to direct the attention to the face or the whole body if you have a full body portrait. Now, one of the most important advice I can give you regarding portraits, and not only, is to know your light, especially if you're outside or indoors and you have control over the light, because you will know how to direct it or redirect it, how to place your subject in the frame, how to take advantages of the shadow it creates, be it harsh or soft shadows. Another important advice I can give you is regarding composition. In your camera and even in your phone, there is an option to turn on a grid. Find that option and turn it on, simply because it will help you understand the rule of thirds, which is the most common rule for composition used in photography, and not only there. Place your subject's face or the entire subject in the center, at the intersection of one of the points on the grid, or along the line between 2 points. Obviously, you can break or bend this rule as much as you want, but if you keep it in mind and apply it from time to time, there is no chance you're going to get a wrong composition in your photos. Now, a subpoint to composition is cropping your subject. Do not crop at the joints, because it will give the impression that the person you are photographing is missing limbs when that is not true. So be very careful when you compose in camera or in the edit. Now let's talk about gear. And I'm going to start off with lenses, but I'm going to keep it short because this is a huge and technical topic. The focal lengths you need to use the most, and you are going to use the most at one point, are 35, 50, and 85. Obviously, anything between 35 and 85 is going to be useful, and it won't distort the face or the image too much. So any focal length you choose between 35 and 85, including those two, you're going to be safe. If you go above 90 millimeters is going to be your last safe spot. Anything above will include that you have to move further and further away from the subject because of the compression that the lens will give you. And if you go outside and you try to communicate something to your model, it's going to be hard. You have to move back and forth, and it's not ideal, unless that's what you want. Now, anything below 35 is considered ultra wide or wide, as angle of view and distortion and so on. For example, an 8mm lens will give you a fisheye effect that you see mostly in GoPro cameras or in obviously fisheye lenses. If you specifically want that effect on your portrait, especially on the face because it's going to be distorted, go for it. Otherwise, don't touch that focal length. Now, 16, 18, 24, anything in between until 35, it's going to be useful, but don't go for a face portrait specifically, because there is still some distortion even if you can correct it in post. Try more a medium body shot or a full body shot or an environment portrait where you have the subject somewhere in the environment, because then the distortion will be at the edges of the frame, not on the subject itself. As for cameras, anything can go. From phone to Polaroid to film to digital to cinema camera, anything can go. And camera settings, there are no best settings because you're dependent on the result you want to get. And based on that, you're going to choose the lens, you're going to choose the aperture, you're going to choose the shutter speed, ISO, lights, environment. Basically, everything else outside of the camera will dictate your settings. So unfortunately, there are no best settings. Experiment, find the style you want, set the camera that way, and start taking photos. Now, the last subject in this discussion is people skills. No matter if you're working with a professional model or your best friend, communication is key. Communicate your ideas clearly and in as much detail as possible to get the desired result. Pose for them if you have to, show them pictures as examples, use music, use jokes, use anything to get them relaxed, and also get your idea clear. After that, anything and everything will go smoothly and the results will be splendid. And with this concludes our discussion. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, especially if you're a beginner photographer or you want to dabble with portrait photography. Let me know in the comments below if you have any suggestions or any other topics you want me to tackle in this discussion forum. Please do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.